We are here talking to Dr. Chris Jones. So excited to talk to him today. There's just so much good stuff in his story and what he's doing. I want to welcome you to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Welcome, Chris.
And you and I were just before we started recording, we were jamming a little bit to Reverend Al Green, even though I was singing it.
In Arkansan.
In Arkansan. But tell me, what song is sure to get you out on the dance floor every time?
Ooh. See, my wife is the one who does the music and the songs all the time, and she's the one that drags me. So, to be honest, it's like in any song that has her on the dance floor, I'm following.
Oh, good answer.
Like,
how romantic. Yes, yeah. I love that.
And can I tell you a story? Or
Yeah.
So I met my wife when we met at church. Right, that's the first time I met her.
Uh-huh.
But then there was a pretty prominent football game, and there was an after party. And we both ended up at the after party together. And I remember she had black pants on and a red shirt, and she was looking amazing, and we danced the whole night.
And let's give your wife a shout out by name.
Yes, Dr. Geraldine Jones. She's an ER doc and an Air Force vet, and she's amazing.
Yes, she is. Yes, she
Doc
is.
and
we're going
Doc.
to talk, right? We're going to talk more about her too, because she's a whole part of this package that you are.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right, as she should be. So thank you for that. I am Laura Cathcart Robbins. This is the only one in the room, but I'm never the only one in this room because, as usual, my boyfriend, producer, and co-host Scott Slaughter, best name in the world, as you said, who I call Hun, is here as well.
Hey, honey.
Hey, Hun. All right, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about Dr. You like Hun?
Good.
We're the Huns. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Dr. Chris Jones. He grew up in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, son of two preachers. Chris was raised with a strong sense of faith. He attended Morehouse College on a NASA scholarship, y'all, for physics and math.
That's right.
I'm just laughing at my mathematic abilities right now.
I'm sure they're great.
I'm not laughing at it, honey. I'm laughing with you.
Thank you, hon.
Right. I heard the chuckle.
Yeah. Then Dr. Jones went on to study at MIT, becoming a nuclear engineer and earning a Ph.D. in urban planning. After becoming ordained as a minister, Chris returned home to Arkansas and then led the Arkansas Regional Innovation Hub. Through his work, he has seen firsthand how disparities within Arkansas have gotten worse and not better. He believes there is much room for growth, including improving public education opportunities in every community. I like that, every community. Strengthening infrastructure from roads to broadband access, protecting and securing our right to vote, and bridging the rural and urban divide.
That's right.
Yeah, Chris has faith in Arkansas's potential, and he's running for governor to ensure that every person in Arkansas has an opportunity to succeed. So right on, and welcome, Dr. Chris Jones, to the show.
Thank
officially.
you.
Yeah.
Officially, it's great to be here.
Oh,
Great
I'm
to
so
be here. I'm excited about the
happy you're-
conversation.
Yes. Well, and this is just going to be an extension. You and I had a chance to catch up on a Zoom call, and you were very safe. You did not have the camera on while you were driving.
No, but I was driving.
Yes, you were driving, but you were, you were on a very important mission, which we'll talk a little bit about later. But I loved that talk, and I was so inspired from the beginning because one of the first questions I asked you was why you wanted to run for governor. So I just want to talk a couple of things first before we get into that. First of all, I always ask all my guests, how do you identify?
I identify as a fellow human journey person on this planet that happens to have lots of labels on my chest.
Yes. Okay, I will take that. Thank you. So you will be the first and only Black person elected to any statewide office in Arkansas when you win.
That is correct.
Yes, which is,
And I like how you said it.
yeah, well, it's true. And I just want to take a moment with that because we're in the year 2022.
Yeah.
And these are the United States of America. And to not have had Black representation in a state like Arkansas seems unbelievable to me, at the statewide level, rather.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, it's pretty stark, and I think it speaks to the disconnect between the lived experience and the people that are living that experience, and the people who are at the table making decisions supposedly for everyone. So.
Right. Yes, because it is. Thank you for the supposedly for everyone, because that's really important. So now I do want to talk about your journey to where you're sitting now. I think you were 8 years old. Is that right? Tell me when
That
you
is
met
right.
Bill Clinton.
I was 8.
Okay, so tell me that story.
So, and 8 was a pivotal year, by the way. That's the year of the Challenger accident, and that's when I decided I wanted to go to MIT and become an astronaut.
Wow.
But my dad, who's an insurance salesman, he would take me with him on his trip sometimes. He took me to the mall in Little Rock, about 45 minutes away from my hometown. And we're in the mall and run into none other than Governor Bill Clinton. And it was a fascinating exchange. I was just mesmerized by this guy and how he was fully present. And so afterwards, I asked my dad, well, what does he do? And that's when my dad said he's a governor. And I said, what's a governor? And my dad said, well, let's go look it up. And we went home because we didn't have Google on our phones. We went home to the Encyclopedia Britannica. And for the next couple of weeks, I learned that a governor could make a difference in people's lives and could serve folks who don't typically have a voice and really serve everyone. And because I grew up in a family that cared so much about service, and particularly service to Arkansas, which my family has been in for over 200 years, at the age of 8, I decided, you know what, that's what I want to do. That's how I want to live my life, serving Arkansans.
Amazing. And for anyone who has not met Bill Clinton in person, he is just, especially then, I would imagine, this magnanimous, effervescent, charming, warm, chatty.
Chatty. Very chatty. And it was amazing because he stopped, someone interrupted the conversation. And he talked to that person for about maybe up to 10 minutes.
Yeah.
He literally came back to our conversation and picked up at the next word, which told me he was there with us. Yes.
And that's so rare of anyone, but to be but to be sitting in public office and hold that. It is why I'm sure he was elected for his second term, as president, right? As his ability to do that and make you feel. And I think you and I talked about this because I've had a couple of encounters with him as well. Like you're the only person there, right?
That's right. Like
and
you're
so
the only one in the room.
Like you're the only one in the room. And so this 8-year-old boy, you saw this, you felt this. What really struck me about that is that you went home and actually did the research to not only find out what a governor is, but like what their title is, but what they do. And right? And then made that decision. I'm going to do this. That's I don't know. Maybe I did know that at 8 years old, but I don't think I knew what my path was for sure. Well,
you may have. We all have different journeys, right?
Right. So I do want to. You mentioned the Challenger. That was January 28th, 1986. Millions of kids were in school that day. Hun, were you in school that day? Do you remember that?
I was. I did. I watched it on TV just like a lot of other kids.
Yep. On Channel Zero.
Channel Zero.
Yeah, and I think I remember just recently seeing a movie where they reenacted that and talked about the impact of it, and I had a very visceral reaction.
Right.
I think I had compartmentalized a lot of what I saw, very much like the character in the show. But anyway, it was a very impactful day for those who didn't witness it.
Yeah. So will you tell us, Chris, what that day was like for you?
Yeah, so it was a buildup, right? Because we spent pretty much the entire year because Krista McAuliffe was the teacher in space, and she, interesting side story. One of the runner-ups for teacher in space is a guy named Charlie Spazzato. Now, Charlie's no longer with us, but Charlie Spazzato was the principal of the school I taught at when I taught ninth grade algebra.
Oh, wow.
And he was a
Wow.
runner-up for teacher in space. So it almost came, in that sense, it came full circle.
Yeah.
But I remember that year, we learned about space, we learned about the astronauts, we learned about exploration and the excitement of exploration. And that only fueled my desire. So I knew I loved science and math, but that's when I got more excited about space. And that day, we're sitting down and all the excitement, and they roll the TV in, and we're watching, and after liftoff, and we're so in air and in awe and pumped up that the explosion happened, and most of us were trying to figure out what was going on, and it was after that moment, for me, it was a time to lean in. Right, this happened. It was a challenge. It was an accident. And yet now more than ever, we needed to lean in. And so it was around then that I said, you know what, I definitely want to go to space now.
And I would have thought that it would have the opposite impact on you, that you would be terrified then to go to space. But why is it that you think for you it made you want to go more, or to lean in, as you said?
Yeah, I mean, I think because we spent so much time talking about the importance and the value of being in space, and the excitement of it, that
Yeah.
in my mind, and now I'm projecting on an 8-year-old, but in my mind, someone had to do it, and we needed to continue to press forward,
Right.
right? So if someone had to do it, then why shouldn't I step up?
Okay. So you were ready to answer the call then,
Yeah,
whatever the
yeah.
call was.
Now,
Yeah.
unfortunately, I can't hear out of my right ear and never could, and so that took me out of the running, even though I did work at NASA.
Right. Just that little part there.
Yeah, yeah.
So you weren't able to go into space yourself. You're not able to be an astronaut because of that. But you still pursued a career, right? But not a
did.
career, but a path toward a career when you were a kid, teenager,
Yep.
going to college, in something to do with space, right?
Yeah, something to do with
Yeah.
space. I actually, and it's for me, it's always been fascinating how God moves and works. I knew I wanted to go to Morehouse, and the call that put me to tears and my family to tears, because my parents already had 2 kids in college. They couldn't afford to send me to Morehouse. They never told me that, but I knew it. We got the call from Morehouse, and they said, would you like to accept a NASA scholarship? The requirements, you get a full ride plus stipend. The only requirement is you have to work at NASA during the summers.
Oh my goodness.
Like, are you kidding me? You
Yeah.
can't make that up. So
No.
I was literally in heaven.
Yes.
And that's how I ended up at Morehouse and working at NASA, and actually ended up working for an astronaut.
Amazing. That's such an amazing story. And then, so you went to MIT, you ended up at NASA, but you became a minister before you moved back to Arkansas. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah.
Had
I
you
was
met
always
your wife
involved with the
yet?
church. I met my wife already. We were together. We had 2 of our girls.
You had two of your
Actually, by the
girls by
time I
then.
was
Okay.
ordained, we had all 3 of our girls.
Wow. Wow.
I was always involved in the church. I never wanted to be a pastor because my dad was a pastor.
Okay.
And the difference is all pastors are ministers, not all ministers are pastors.
Okay. I
And
didn't know
so
that.
I
That's
didn't,
interesting.
yeah, I didn't want that role of a pastor. I didn't feel called to that. But I did feel called to the ministry. And so, yeah, I was involved in the church and ended up becoming ordained after finishing my Ph.D.
That's incredible. I want to ask you more about the difference between minister and pastor, but I don't want to get too hung up on that. But I was just okay. So going back, I want to talk about the fact that you are a physicist, which was not an easy word for me to say at first.
Oh,
Physicist.
come on now. Come on now.
Yeah, no. I mean, I got it now.
But
But
you did it correctly, so I
thank
appreciate
you.
that.
Thank you. And an ordained minister, right? So
That is correct.
you have faith in science and faith in God. Is that correct? I
That
want to
is
know,
absolutely correct.
yeah, is there a conflict there for you at all?
Not at all.
Not at all. Can
Not at
you
all.
talk
And,
about that a little?
yeah, well, one of the things I realized as a physicist, and actually this was further solidified when I had the opportunity to become friends with a Nobel laureate in physics. So this guy has a Nobel Prize in physics. He should know it all, right?
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that was solidified is how much we actually don't know. And he would constantly, implicitly and explicitly talk about the fact that there's so much we don't know.
Right.
And so as a scientist, I realized there's a body of knowledge we have, and there's a much larger body of knowledge we do not have. And for me, there's so many questions that remain in the science world remain unanswered. That it does not at all and has never conflicted for me. Now, I will say, I understand and appreciate the tension. I understand and appreciate questions that come along, and I never shy away from questions. I don't have all the answers by any stretch of the imagination, but the struggle that people have with the two, I get it, and I can appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah. I thank you for saying that. I think I actually kind of knew the answer to that because you talk about that in your video, which went viral, and
Yeah.
we'll talk about that too. But I just wanted to hear you say it directly to me, and I think it actually and that makes so much sense about the unknowns, right? That there aren't these sureties, and so the faith is required in both, right?
In
You have to
both.
have a certain amount of faith, yes, in both science and your actual faith. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
When you and I talked on the phone, like I said, you were on your way to pick up your daughter at school who had gotten sick. You
Yeah.
did have the camera off.
Yeah.
We were Zooming. I got off that call thinking, wow, what a great hands-on dad. Like how lucky his daughters are. And I'm sure you're extremely lucky to have your wife and your daughters as well. But
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah.
my thought was they were really lucky to have you. And then former President Barack Obama, he said this during an interview with Bill O'Reilly. He said the worst thing about being president is living in the bubble. It's very hard to escape. So during this campaign and after you win, you and your family will be living in that bubble. You and your wife are both accomplished professionals. You could probably do very well in the private sector. You're young. You have a beautiful family. You get to be that hands-on
you.
dad. Yeah.
Yeah.
But knowing all that, can you explain to me or to us why it's important for you to run?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many reasons why it's important, and a lot of it though boils down to what I'm blessed with. There are so many people that don't have it, and it's not their fault. It's not fair. It's not right, and most importantly, it is fixable and solvable. What do I mean? I mean, I was blessed and fortunate to grow up with both parents in the house. Now I know what a pink slip is. I know what a repossession is. I know food stamps, and yet we had a very comfortable life. And when I think about the struggle that so many go through, particularly in Arkansas, when there are areas where the median income is $10,000. So when I think about
Annual.
that, I mean, annual income is $10,000. The pain and struggle of campaigning, the pain and struggle of governing, it pales in comparison to what they go through. And so if I can serve and help make their lives a little better,
Yeah.
and if I can serve and help some kid whose sitting in a classroom, and now because of policies we implemented, he's able to access technology and access opportunity that he or she didn't access otherwise. And then they become the ones who cure cancer. Like, I'm all for that.
Yes.
I'm all for that.
So, and your family feels the same way?
Yeah. So when my wife and I were getting serious, and I quickly fell in love with her. I'm not sure the reverse was true, but hey, we're gonna leave that alone. I worked on her for a while, but when we started to get really serious, we had a conversation and said, hey, look, I'm gonna move back to Arkansas, and I'm gonna run because I really want to serve as governor. Now, she was raised in Montgomery, so she understands the South.
Yes.
And it was like, if this is not something you want to do, not the journey you want to take, then we need to talk about that now. We can have a good time now, but we won't make it in the long haul. And she was all in from day one
Right.
because
And
she
so,
believed, and
yeah.
my family's all in.
Amazing. You were living. Where were you living then when you said we're going to move back to Arkansas?
That was in Boston.
You were in Boston, yeah,
Yeah,
and that's a much different lifestyle there.
very different, much
Yeah,
colder, much more
much
expensive.
colder and expensive. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's a big all in though.
huge.
Yeah.
Huge, but she believed in me, and she believed in my belief in Arkansas.
So she was able to hear the fact that you were called, because were you torn at that point? Like you could pursue this career over here, but this was calling to you, or was it just very clear that this is what you were going to do?
There were always moments where you ask, "Is there a different path?" But for me, even in marriage, it's always a matter of when I close my eyes. So I run the numbers, I do the analysis, I remember the dreams. But when I close my eyes, where do I see peace? And in fact, sometimes I envision my 80-year-old self, my 85-year-old self, sitting on the
Yeah.
porch sipping tea, looking back on my life and saying, you know, if I take this path, will I smile? Will I be pleased with it? And this has been the path always, that, when I look back, even my 80-year-old self is like, okay, this journey is the right one.
Yeah. I love that. I love the idea of you looking back at your past, knowing that you did what the thing that you were supposed to do, regardless of the
Yeah.
results, right?
Yeah,
Is it
exactly.
sweet tea that you're sipping or just tea?
It's sweet tea. It
It's
has
sweet
to
tea.
be sweet tea. I'm sorry, it has to be sweet tea.
I agree. I totally agree. I love
Yes,
me some
and that's
sweet
after
tea.
having got some collard greens and some fried chicken. Okay, let me stop.
So I want to shift gears a little bit and
Yeah.
talk about Sarah Huckabee Sanders. For people who don't know, she is the daughter of former Arkansas governor and former press secretary under President Trump. I think for 2 years she was his press secretary. There were 3 Republican nominees in this race for governor, but they dropped out. And I read last month that she had raised over $12.8 million since she launched her campaign.
That's right.
Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. So when your video, the video that I wrote, which went viral, is called "About Time," and you should watch it while you're listening. Please check this video out. It's beautiful. It
Thank
gave me
you.
chills, honestly. It seems to be the exact opposite of the campaign that she's running on, right? And I
It
don't
is.
know. I know you probably don't want to be disparaging, but I just wanted to talk to you about. So I have 3 things I want to talk about, and I'll remind you. I want to talk about how important these midterms are, not just to Arkansas, but to the country. I want to talk about what it's going to take for her to lose and you to win. And I want to talk about why now, when she's kind of this juggernaut there,
Yeah.
also with deep Arkansian, is that how you say it?
Arkansan. Yep.
Arkansan roots. So Which one do you want to start with? Why are the midterms important? Why now? And why her? Like, why against her?
Yeah, I'll probably combine a couple of them, and then what I
Okay.
don't catch, you just pull back up. But
Yeah, yeah.
particularly in the why now and why the midterms matter. Like we are at a moment, um, and you look nationally, you look globally. We're at a moment where democracy is at risk. The idea that you can storm the Capitol. The idea that you can consistently tell lies and create a whole different narrative is what is on the ballot and what's at stake. And when I think about how someone who's not from Arkansas, how they get their heads around why it's important in Arkansas, is because if we don't stop the likes of Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Ron DeSantis now, they're going to be the ones to run for president next.
Oh, yes.
And it's critical that we stop it in its tracks now. Now is going to be the lowest investment to stop it. Now, look, a couple other things. Like I've met her a couple times, and I don't doubt her love for her kids. I don't doubt her love for her family. I don't doubt that at all. What I question is her care and concern for Arkansans and all Arkansans. What I question is her desire to actually solve problems that make a difference in people's lives. And even with that, like when we met, I said to her, like, hey, look, I hope you consider voting for me. And she did. She was so shocked by it that she said maybe. She actually said maybe. I think it just threw her off.
I'm sure you did. That's awesome.
And I'm joking and laughing, but this sort of gets to how we win, right? Because we win by engaging everyone. And I'll tell just a couple of quick stories. One, I went to a place called Harrison, Arkansas. Harrison is a former sundown town where there were literally signs that said, don't get caught. If you are in these categories, don't get caught with the sundown.
Right.
Harrison
Like,
is
which categories are you talking about?
Black, Hispanic, and they didn't use those terms.
Right.
Jew, and so it's also considered the birthplace of the Klan, the Ku Klux Klan,
Yes.
and the Grand Wizard lives there now.
Oh, snap. Okay.
Right. So
Yeah.
it was always in my plan, in my desire to show up everywhere in Arkansas. And we just did we have 75 counties in the state. We did a 75 county tour. Well, we did an event in Harrison.
Wow.
And right, because we have to show up. And I walked into a restaurant for a meet and greet that was publicized. The restaurant was packed and we got a standing ovation. So what that told me was that everywhere there are folks, right, who are ready to engage in a different way. And that's how we're going to win. There were 1 million people who could have voted last cycle but didn't. And so when we engage in 1 million out of a state with 3 million people in it, there were more people who could have voted last cycle than everyone who voted in the last gubernatorial.
Man.
Most of those folks are in what we call the Delta and South Arkansas, where the African American population is at least 25%.
Huge.
And some places upwards of 75%. Right, and they're not voting. So how do we win? We show up in those places. We give them a reason to vote. We protect their vote. How do we win? We show up at the doorstep of the Klan and we say, look, you need good schools too. You need good roads also, and you need jobs as well. So you might want to get on board or else you're going to be stuck in the same rut that you're in right now.
Right. Wow. How courageous for you to no. I'm just thinking about you walking in. It's Harrison, right? The county.
Harrison, yeah.
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 Walking
Harrison,
into
the
that
city, yep.
the city and and a publicized, knowing so people could be waiting for you.
Yeah.
Well, they were
Yeah.
waiting for you, but
They
people
yeah, they
who
were. Yeah,
on the
exactly.
opposite side could have been waiting for you as well.
Hmm.
And to walk in and be a people's person in that moment, just be
Yeah.
a person among persons, right?
Well, get this. I mean, if you lived in your house for 200 years, there's not a room in your house you wouldn't go.
Yes.
My family has been in Arkansas for over 200 years. Arkansas is my state.
Yeah.
So now I don't love it all. There are places that things I want to change. I don't love every aspect of it. I mean, there are things I want to change, and we can do better. But it's my home, and so no one gets to tell me that I can't show up in my home. And certainly my opponent does not get to say that we can be a place of division. And the last thing I'll say is, which kind of gets to your question, is why it matters and how do we do it. There's been this politics of division and politics of fear that has been stoked, when in reality, it's actually the politics of belonging that is going to make the difference. And so we're creating a different kind of belonging where all Arkansans, no matter who you are or where you are, can be a part of this process.
Okay, so I am somebody who has always, since I was 16 years old, I was registering people to vote. I worked as a page at the convention where Jesse Jackson was running for president in San Francisco. I can't remember what year that
Wow.
was. I was in
love
the
it.
aisle next to the King family. They were all there supporting Reverend Jackson.
You,
When
you
I
must have been like 2 when you did it, right? Because you're not old enough to be.
I'll listen to you. Thank
Yeah.
you. That's how you win votes. But when I met Bill Clinton, as you and I talked about just a little bit, I went up to him and told him that I didn't understand why. I knew I wasn't a Republican. I didn't understand why I was a Democrat until I heard him speak at this particular event. And I was thanking him for that.
Wow.
Even with all that, I am somebody who didn't understand that we needed to vote in elections other than the presidential election. I didn't
right. That's
understand
right.
how important it is to vote for judges in your local elections, like
Mm-hmm.
how much they influence, right? How many laws they influence, how, people, how, you know what I mean? The judges are just really important. I can't think of all the
Absolutely. They
reasons
make
now.
a big difference.
They do make a big difference. And governor is it makes a huge difference. I'm looking at states where they are firing teachers for teaching anything that comes under the banner of critical race theory.
Yep.
Right? Governors are doing that of certain states that I won't mention right now. But tell me what else a governor does, because I don't know that a lot of people know, besides a stay of execution for somebody in prison. What else does the
Yeah.
governor do?
Yeah, and that the stay of execution is critical, right? Because that's someone's life, and then
Yes.
we'll stay on that for a second. Our current governor, who's done a number of things that I like and appreciate and would build on, and I'll give you one example, and then I'll tell you some difference. He started a coding initiative, right? So he's saying that every student in school will have access to coding classes, which lays a foundation for STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, and math. Well, that's the kind of thing that a governor can do, to lay the foundation and set the groundwork so that we can launch into the future. And I think that's right, and I think we build on that. Now, what the other thing a governor can do is determine where resources go throughout the state. And so, and I'll tell you what he did that I would do totally differently. But before, let me say, like, my focus is on, and you'll like this, spreading PB&J across the whole state. Because that's what a governor can do, spreading P. Now, you're like, what is he talking about? Well, first of all, I'll say the best sandwich is when the peanut butter and the jelly is all over. Every bite has both.
Yes.
Right? Every corner, every
Yes.
crack, every crevice. Well, PB&J for us is preschool, broadband, and jobs. That's it.
Okay.
And every town, every city, every home needs access to high quality education, that's pre-K, strong infrastructure, that's broadband, and phenomenal economic development, that's jobs. Well, a governor can do that. The other thing a governor can do, and part of that is where the money goes. And our current governor has decided that he's going to allocate $100 million to add 600 prison beds.
Oh,
Why? Right, because the population of Arkansas is going to increase, so that means the prison population has to increase. Well, that is fundamentally flawed. Instead, you can allocate even a portion of that to pre-K,
yeah.
a portion of that to programs that once you get out, they keep you out, a portion of that to juvenile programs that will reduce the need for beds in the first place. Those are the kinds of things that a governor can do for across the state.
But those are harder sells, aren't they? Those are harder things to sell, are they?
They are. Well, no, pre-K is not hard sell. Broadband is not
Yeah.
hard sell. You know,
Right.
and I'll tell you even further. I think a harder sell is showing people about the protecting of the vote, and that's what a governor can also do. You know, governors
how.
are on the front line. Well, when you think about it, the party in office in Arkansas, every county has 3 election commissioners, and the party in office gets 2 of those 3. Right, so that sets the tone for how ballots are caught, how ballots are cast, how ballots are counted, and a governor plays a big role in that. A governor plays a role in making sure that the polling locations, there are sufficient polling locations and access to those, in conjunction with the Secretary of State. So the idea around voting access and protection, it in part rests with the governor too.
And since President Biden's Voting Rights Act did not pass,
Yes,
it is up to the governors
It is.
of each state, right? So it's not
Yep.
federally regulated in the way that
It's
or
gonna
that
be
I
state.
had hoped. Yeah.
That we had all hoped, right?
Yeah.
And so whether it's voting rights or LGBTQ rights or abortion rights, the states will become the test bed for some of these crazy laws, and a governor is a stopgap.
Yeah. Wow, so important. So how do you reach, I know you said you show up to those people in the Delta. That's where
Yeah.
but like how do you show up for people that aren't checking for you or this election? So many people, and I'll just
Yep.
say black people just for the sake of this conversation, because the people that I'm talking about were all black, really don't think elections affect them. They don't think it matters
Right.
who holds office because their lives don't change, which I find to be just infuriating. And I'm really passionate about the fact that it matters a lot. But how do you go there, show up, and impact these people and pass this on to them in a way that's meaningful?
Yeah. So a couple of things. First, I would say that they actually are making a rational choice. In many ways, for many people, it actually doesn't matter, because what they've experienced so long is that no matter who they vote for, they get the same results. They're still making $10,000 a year. They still don't have quality roads. They still don't have access to strong hospitals and ambulances and fire. So how do you you start by appreciating the fact that it's a rational choice for a lot of people, and then you show up. So we were at the UAPB, University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff. It's a black college in my hometown of Pine Bluff. And we went to the basketball game and registered like 30 people.
Yes.
So that's how you show up.
Okay.
We're doing a community event in a town in East Arkansas called Helena. It's the population of Helena is a heavy black population. We're going to have bouncy houses and food and music, and we're doing voter registration.
Okay.
So you meet people where they are. We're showing up. I walk in the gas stations every chance I get, and have conversations with the gas station attendants. And the more remote and random and off the beaten path it is, the better,
Yes.
because people
Yes.
don't show up in those spaces.
Right. Right. So then here's someone who's literally coming to talk to us and not just spreading a
Yes.
message. What do
Yep.
you need to vote in Arkansas? Do you need to show your driver's license or some kind of ID when you go to the
You do need an
polling
ID.
place? Can it be anything? Can it be any kind of ID, or does it have to be a driver's license?
It does not have to be a driver's license. There are a number of other licenses other IDs that you can use.
Okay.
A fairly long list. I mean, it is certainly a barrier. It
Yes.
is not a barrier that can't be overcome. It's an unnecessary barrier.
Right. Right.
But we're working to make sure people are informed so that
Yes.
we can overcome that unnecessary barrier until we can change it.
Excellent. Ooh. So, as of this recording day, there are
Yes.
251 days until the November 8 midterms. Like, so you're the mathematician. I'm probably wrong, but
No, no.
honey,
You're
you can
probably
check
right.
me. Yeah, probably right. So what people who are listening to this podcast are everywhere. We do have a lot of people in Arkansas who listen because we get to see our
Yeah, I love it.
demographics.
I love it.
What do you want to say to anyone who's listening right now about these next 251 days?
Yeah. Well, every day is critical. Every day matters, and what we need is for everyone that's listening to own the campaign, to learn about the campaign, to spread the word, to donate, because we're going to put boots on the ground, and it takes dollars to put boots on the ground. So
Right.
and it doesn't need big checks. We want big checks, but guess what? To make me your coffee order once a week, and
I like that.
literally just donate $5 a week. And if the folks listening to your podcast will donate that amount on a consistent basis, it's going to allow us to show up in the Delta. It's going to allow us to register people to vote, and it's going to allow us to yank them out of their homes and get them to the polls come November. So
Yes.
continue to help us amplify the word. That's what we're doing.
Well,
ChrisForGovernor.com, by the way.
oh yes, thank you. Thank you. And we'll have that in our show notes too. And I just think that your message could not be more important because what you're talking about is the people that will be impacted the most are the people who are not getting this message as consistently.
That's right.
And
That's right.
so whatever dollars could be donated to your campaign will allow you to expand your reach into these places. I have a very dear friend, I'm going to call her up by name, Tracy Lee Kimball. And she was one of the people who went on the trail when in 2008 for President Barack Obama before he was president. He was then senator.
Wow.
And knocked on doors. They were on
Nice.
buses. She slept on the bus. They went to the next town. She got off the bus, fixed herself
love it.
up, and knocked on doors and
And
said,
knocked
"Do
on
you
doors.
know?" Right? And we'll take whatever you can give us, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll take whatever,
'Cause it
and that,
matters.
yeah, and that's how, I mean, that's how he raised his money. It wasn't really through those large donations. But he was, again, he was a people's candidate. He was representing the interests like you are of the workers, of the people who are forgotten, the people whose towns don't get visited on those campaign stops. And they came out. They came out.
Yes, indeed.
So you're obviously, people listening, you're going to go to the website. You're going to obviously donate, making Dr. Chris Jones your weekly cup of coffee, maybe, that you buy out.
There you go. A weekly cup
yes.
of coffee.
And you're going to tell people about this podcast and you're going to spread it.
Yes.
Yes. And share it with your friends. There's this amazing man who is a man of faith, and he is a rocket scientist, and he's running for governor of Arkansas, not because he has to, but because he chose to. And he chose to come back to his roots where his family's lived for 200 years and invest in this this endeavor so that he can make it better. So, thank you. Thank you so much for this talk.
Thank you. I'll enjoy our conversations, and I appreciate you helping to not only spread the word here, but for all that you all stand for, and what you're lifting up and shining a light on. It matters. It matters a lot.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dr. Chris Jones, and I'm the only Black faith-based rocket scientist running for governor.